I know it's winter, but this is a very big storm out there. Days of potential misery, power outages, dangerous driving conditions, flight cancellations, school closures. Wait, is that last one bad? Depends on who you ask. Former special counsel Jack Smith and ICE immigration tactics. We explore both with House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan. Canada disinvited from President Trump's Board of Peace, and Prince Harry blasts Trump's dismissal of NATO military sacrifices after 9/11. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to the Takeout. We're going to do two things here we don't typically do. One, we're going to start the show here in the Conversation Corner. And two, we're going to preemptively cover the weather. Why are we doing the weather? Well, because this winter storm appears poised to smack much of this nation upside the head. That, I'm told, is a technical weather term, smack upside the head. Heavy snow, freezing rain, ice, high winds, sub-freezing temperatures, all are forecast. Of course, some states are better equipped to deal with this than others. Our concerns tonight center on Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, where snow mixing with freezing rain could down power lines and plunge cities and towns into darkness and danger. 11 states in total are bracing for what amounts to a prolonged ice storm. Such events not only threaten power, but make any driving and even walking treacherous. Because weather projections are, by their very nature, imprecise, many cities are girding for the worst. Shreveport, Nashville, Atlanta, Spartanburg, Charlotte, Raleigh, and Richmond, just to name a few. Now, for anyone in the storm's path, here is what I want you to listen and monitor for: the issuance in your area of a winter storm warning or an ice storm warning. Some places, I'm sad to say, will get both of those warnings, and that could mean very harsh conditions ahead. One of the biggest complicating factors: sub-freezing temperatures are expected to linger across this storm's path for days, delaying not only the thaw, but complicating any effort to restore power if it is lost. In that regard, you might remember in 2021 in Texas, a winter storm knocked out power to 4.5 million residents and businesses. At least 246 people died. Meteorologists are comparing this storm to that Texas storm. Related, Duke Energy has already warned its 3.8 million customers in North Carolina and South Carolina to expect multi-day outages. States of emergency have already been declared in many states, including the Carolinas, Georgia, and Virginia. The Federal Department of Energy has ordered grid operators to provide currently unused backup power to data centers, homes, and businesses should the storm knock out principal power sources. We begin tonight with our Nicole Valdez, who is in Nashville, Tennessee. Nicole, what's the preparation there look like?
Major, good to be with you. We know whether we get the snow or we get the ice, this is going to be a dangerous situation for cities like Nashville, but not just Nashville. We're talking about Dallas, Oklahoma City, Atlanta, Charlotte. These are major cities and major travel hubs where we are going to see the impacts of this storm pack a punch. In terms of preparation, well, the good news is a lot of these cities say we've had time this week to get our crews together and to get a plan in place to try to be as best prepared as we can be and best respond once that snow and that ice starts to move in. In Music City, just to give you an example, we've had crews and snowplow drivers driving for the last 2 days, pre-treating roads. They put down what's a chemical mixture. It's called brine. The goal of that is it'll actually try to heat up the asphalt. So as that snow and that ice falls, hopefully they can try to prevent as much of it as they can from sticking to the ground, because they say that could be the most dangerous situation of all, is some of these roads and freeways literally turning into an ice rink. It is not going to be safe if that happens for anyone, no matter what kind of car you've got, whether it's four-wheel drive or not, to be driving on those roads. They still know they may see those emergency calls come in, and they know they've got to make those paths as safe as possible for ambulance drivers, for their state troopers who are going to be out trying to help people who may still have to leave their homes. Even though if you ask anybody here, they're going to say if you have to leave or if you don't have to leave, just please don't. Major.
If you don't have to leave, stay home, and municipalities in this entire storm's path trying as best they can to plan ahead. Nicole Valdez from Nashville, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. Here with me now in the Conversation Corner, the director of the National Weather Service, Ken Graham. Ken, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. This is a big one. We should take this seriously, yes?
Absolutely. This is a big one. I mean, think about it. We have watches and warnings at the National Weather Service stretching 2,000 miles from New Mexico all the way to New England. This is a big storm.
How have you been preparing in terms of understanding what the storm could do? I understand you've had planes in the Pacific, planes in the Gulf of Mexico, everywhere. Yeah,
we have. And to get into the idea of the environment, this is a three-pronged system. So you got to have the cold air in place. So we're watching the cold air come in from Canada. It's moving into the area as we speak. People had not too bad of temperatures the last couple of days. They're going downhill real quick. And you can even feel it even locally here in Washington. You go outside compared to this morning. It's colder. So the cold air is coming in. It's going to be in place. The second part of it is a low pressure developing out in the Pacific near Baja. So we sent a plane out there to gauge how strong is it, you know, what the strength of it's going to be, and really get an idea of the data into the models to get it into where the path is going to be, because it makes a difference in who gets rain, who gets snow, who gets ice. And the other part of it is the moisture from the Gulf of America. So believe it or not, about 10 to 12,000 feet is a warm area of moisture coming out of the Gulf. The snow melts, it goes through that warm area, melts through there, and then refreezes on the ground. All those things we needed to get planes, to get the data, get into the models, to get a good forecast.
Lots of focus in this conversation always tends towards snow. I'm a bit more fixated on ice.
Ice is deadly. Look, these systems, historically, the ice can cause power outages that cause issues with transportation. It causes issues with trees coming down. It's absolutely deadly. The ice is absolutely the big thing to fear. And you think about it, it only takes about a quarter inch of ice to start knocking down trees and knocking down power lines. And we're talking some areas between a half inch to an inch of that ice. That's devastating for some areas. So not everyone will get it, but the areas that get that full half inch to an inch, it's going to be devastating.
And as I mentioned in the opening, the projection is for sub-freezing temperatures for days after the storm. So even after the storm technically ends, there will be problems.
There really will, because if you think about this air mass, 50 below zero wind chill factors for the upper Midwest and 0 degree wind chills all the way to the Gulf Coast. So you think about the cold temperatures reaching all the way to the Gulf. Any areas that get that ice, it's not going away anytime soon. So just because all this precipitation is going to be out of here by Monday, some areas are going to deal with this ice on the ground for a week after that. And so some of the power outages could last that long as well.
So that could mean flight delays, flight cancellation, school buses not being able to move. Anyone who's dealing with responding in terms of police or fire, they're going to be slowed down. Just a lot of things are going to get locked up, if I hear you correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we're really keying in on preparedness, because there's always these debates. It's like this model, that model. The forecast hasn't changed more than 40 or 50 miles. So it's not about those small differences. It's about if this is going to happen. So if you think about the impacts that's coming. So the preparedness is going to be everything. Having the food that you need, having the water that you need. And, you know, we talked before going on the air about generators. We're selling them out.
Make sure you know how to use it.
Everybody's buying them up, and you're looking at your manual. How do I start this thing? Well, look, you're learning how to do it, but you need to know the one important thing: keep it outside. Don't put that generator in the house, because I was Hurricane Center director, and I remember big hurricanes where we lost more people to improper use of generators than we even did storm surge. So please, 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 please use that generator safe.
Use it safe. Read the manual. Ken Graham, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. We turn now to Minnesota, where a school district and the Department of Homeland Security have quite conflicting accounts about the circumstances surrounding a 5-year-old boy taken into ICE custody. This is 5-year-old Liam Ramos. According to the Columbia Heights Public School District, he was used as, and this is their terminology, bait, to knock on the door to help lure his father out. DHS officials there dispute this, arguing the boy was abandoned by his father, who they say is in this country illegally, having arrived from Ecuador. Lana Zak has the latest from Minneapolis. What do you know?
Hey there, Major. So this is a case of very different stories from both the federal government and from eyewitness accounts that were here on the ground, including one bystander who said that on behalf of the school, she was willing to take 5-year-old Liam Ramos. But as we have been explaining, the official word, according to the federal government and Bavino in particular, is that the child was in the least restrictive possible environment down in that detention center with his father right now. So he is currently in Texas. And even the question about whether his father, let alone Liam himself, were here illegally, that's even something of dispute, because they came over, announced their intent for asylum during President Biden's then program that allowed people to come in and ask for asylum and check in through an app. So according to the side of the Ramos family, they were doing everything that they were supposed to do. And regardless, the question of worst of the worst or best of the best, as we've heard Renee Good's family attorney describes her and others who have found themselves in the crosshairs of these ICE action, there's no way that 5-year-old Liam is among the worst of the worst that the administration has been talking about trying to detain and deport from the streets here in Minneapolis. So that has galvanized an outcry here, Major.
And Lana, as I understand it, Liam was one of 4 students in the school districts there in the greater Minneapolis area detained this past week. Is that right?
Yes, and we have even heard reports that ICE agents have come to the schools, onto school property. They've been asked to leave. There are so many people who have gathered here on the streets of Minneapolis and St. Paul, despite those bitterly cold temperatures, -8 degrees at the moment. Thousands going through the streets in protest of what they see as these escalations of ICE action that target not only the specific people that are targets of immigration action that the federal government has talked about, but also what appears to be bystanders, protesters, and also in this case, students who have no agency in their decision or their parents' decision or an adult's decision to bring them over here. So that's why thousands of people gathered at the Target Center, hundreds of businesses closed here in Minneapolis. It really is a city that is potentially a tinderbox, Major.
Lana Zak from Minneapolis, thank you so very much. President Trump has revoked his invitation for Canada to join his newly founded Board of Peace. This comes as there have been a kind of an angry exchange of words between the Canadian government and the U.S. government. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, citing tariffs as a rupture in the New World Order and saying of Trump that he was wrong to say that Canada lives primarily because of the United States. CBS News chief foreign affairs correspondent and moderator of Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan, joins me now. You spoke to the Canadian ambassador to the United States. This is quite a row, as they would say across the pond.
They would, and really an incredible moment. The ambassador has been here for so many years, helped negotiate that free trade deal that the United States and Canada are now in the midst of a standoff over whether they're going to renew it and extend it or not. But you just think about the alliance between the U.S. and Canada. We have a shared border. We have deep trade, one of our best customers and vice versa. And we have integrated defense. We have NORAD defending the northern part of this hemisphere, and they're a NATO ally. So this is really just a completely new territory to be in. There was a little bit of news that actually happened mid-interview as we were recording, where President Trump posted to his account that Canada, an Arctic power, is against his planned Golden Dome over Greenland. And I asked the ambassador to respond. Do you know what he's talking about, that Canada has rejected being involved?
I'm afraid I don't. But what I can say about the Golden Dome is this. Canada is investing over $80 billion over the next 5 years in our defense systems. And a big part of that is Arctic defense. And a big part of our Arctic defense investments are something called over-the-horizon radar, which is a system that allows us to see the threats that are coming into the Arctic before they arrive. So that is part, and when we have talked to the president about protecting our hemisphere, we have talked about ways in which our different capabilities can work together so that we have eyes on the region and we cooperate in a way that protects both of our countries.
So the president has described that as Canada wanting to plug in to the system. As you understand it, that's the better description, your own system that would coordinate?
Right. Much as we do across all sorts of defense systems where we're interoperable, we work together, we make our investments that make sense for Canada in defending our territory and defending our sovereignty, but we work with the Americans and other allies to maximize the benefits of those.
So in short, you do think there needs to be more focus on Arctic defense, but you're on board to help do that.
We're deeply committed to Arctic defense, absolutely.
And that's notable not just because Canada is where it is on the map, but it happens to be the country closest to Greenland in terms of Arctic power. So we're not clear on what the president was talking about, but there wasn't a vote on this. In fact, Canada is, and they had meetings with Trump officials and military officials about planning this layered missile defense. That's still really just a concept. It hasn't fully been briefed to Congress. There's $25 billion that Congress has already pledged to it, but it's not fully funded. President Trump called that just a down payment. It's going to be a really expensive system, whatever it ends up being.
Right, and we don't even know what it's a down payment for yet, technologically.
Right.
So it is worth pointing out that Canada and the United States have a close relationship, more than economic. Canadian soldiers fought alongside Americans and died in the U.S. war in Afghanistan. What did the ambassador have to say about that? Because this has become a big topic after Davos. Even Prince Harry weighed in on it today about allied sacrifices right after 9/11 under Article 5 in NATO Charter.
Right, and the president's remarks to Fox News were specific to Afghanistan and the battlefield there, where he said, we never asked NATO for anything. They didn't do anything. They say they helped us in Afghanistan, but they weren't even close to the front lines. Now, this isn't a matter of hurt feelings. This is a matter of insult to the families of the dead. That's how it was received in Canada. That's how it was received in Prince Harry's home country of the United Kingdom, where they had over 400 casualties. The United States had about 2,000.
By definition, we're near or on the front line.
Right. And you know what? As a journalist, I feel responsible whenever I was talking or reporting from Afghanistan and trying to emphasize that ISAF and the NATO forces there, we often shorthanded as the troops or American troops. America did carry the weight of the financial load, the military load, the intelligence load. But on so many of those bases, the perimeter would be guarded by a foreign national that was there in alliance with the United States of America, because this was a NATO response from 2001 to 2014, when there was that end of combat operations, though it wasn't an end to a presence. But when the United States pulled out, NATO pulled out too, and there were others on the front lines who were very much in peril as well.
And these are historical facts, ladies and gentlemen, that are simply not in dispute. And as Margaret just said, this is about much more than hurt feelings or diplomatic ruffling of feathers. There are real families who experienced and still experience a measure of grief because their loved one sacrificed alongside Americans in Afghanistan.
Exactly. And all politics is local. It gets harder for their political leaders when their public feels that they have been insulted.
Indeed. Margaret Brennan, always a pleasure. Thank you so very much. You can see Margaret Brennan's full interview with Canadian Ambassador to the United States, Kirsten Hillman, on Sunday, 10:30 Eastern, right here. Well, on CBS. This is a stream, but you know the drill. Still to come on The Takeout, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan. We talked to him extensively about former Special Counsel Jack Smith's first public testimony before that committee, President Trump's pardoning of January 6th rioters, and ICE searches inside residences without an independent judicial warrant. Also, the competitive field for the open Senate seat in Michigan. Abdul El Sayed is trying to win using the Zohran Mamdani political playbook. He will join me live. Plus, the latest look at the forecast of that big winter storm. Takeout returns in 90 seconds. Welcome back to Takeout. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, Republican from Ohio, longtime critic of former Special Counsel Jack Smith. Well, yesterday, Jordan had a chance to question Smith, as did many other members of the Judiciary Committee, during his first public congressional testimony. Earlier today, I spoke with the congressman about that and a lot more. Here's our conversation. Mr. Chairman, former special counsel Jack Smith, related to his testimony before your committee yesterday, said he fears he could be a target of federal prosecution. Do you believe Jack Smith is a worthy potential target for federal prosecution? And if so, why?
Yeah, that's a question for the Justice Department. What I do know is we've deposed not only Jack Smith last month, but we've also deposed 3 of his deputies, Mr. Wyndham, Mr. Bratt, Mr. Cooney. In fact, Mr. Wyndham took the 5th, I think, 71 times. Mr. Bratt took the 5th, I think, 75 times in his deposition. And we have referred Thomas Wyndham, one of Jack Smith's top deputies, to the Justice Department because we felt he was obstructing our investigation. Now, what the Justice Department may decide to do with Jack Smith, I leave that up to them, but I trust Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche and the folks who run the Justice Department in the Trump administration.
In relating to the testimony yesterday, Jack Smith said the following. I want you to listen to it. Not about his attempt to prosecute President Trump, but about President Trump's decision on day one, returning to the presidency, to pardon everyone who had either been convicted or pled guilty to crimes related to the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. Please listen to what Jack Smith said.
I do not understand why you would mass pardon people who assaulted police officers. I don't get it. I never will.
Are you comfortable with those pardons of everyone involved in January 6th, including those who violently hit police officers?
Jack Smith doesn't get to decide. Our Constitution is clear. The pardon power is a power that is exclusive to the presidency, and the president can pardon whoever he darn well wants. I mean, we saw it in the previous administration. You saw President Biden pardon his family. You saw him give preemptive pardons to the people who were on the January 6th committee. So President Trump can use the pardon power however he wants. That's a unique power exclusively that resides with the president. He chose to exercise it that way.
Are you comfortable with it?
I think the whole country is comfortable with it because we elected President Trump as president. He can then make the decision as president who he's going to pardon. Just like when Joe Biden was in office, he got to pardon who he wanted to. That's a power that is, again, with the president, and it is the Constitution gives it exclusively to the president, and they can exercise it in any way they choose.
How comfortable or uncomfortable are you, Mr. Chairman, with the way the Justice Department has handled attempted prosecutions of James Comey and Letitia James?
I mean, again, that's a call for the Justice Department. What I know is yesterday, I think the whole country could see, for those who tuned in, that Jack Smith was no different than James Comey, Alvin Bragg, Fonnie Willis. He was part of this weaponization effort, this political effort to go after their political opponent, in this case, President Trump. And it's been a 10-year-long, decade-long effort by the left to go after President Trump. And the country saw through it. They saw through it all, as evidenced by the fact that they elected President Trump back in November 2024, the second time to President of the United States. So that's what I think came through. So much so that Jack Smith said in the hearing yesterday, he was still contemplating putting Cassidy Hutchinson on the stand. Everyone in the country knows what she said in that primetime hearing of the January 6th committee wasn't true. And yet Jack Smith was thinking about, if it ever got to trial, putting her on the witness stand. Jack Smith was so determined to get President Trump, he went and got the phone records of over a dozen members of Congress, including the Speaker of the House, knew who he called, who called him, when it took place, how long it lasted, patterned his whole life for a 2-month time frame. That is wrong, and everyone knows that. But that was the effort they were willing to go to, the length they were willing to go to in their quest to get President Trump in this political prosecution that you saw, an investigation you saw from the special counsel.
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask you about something that I know, broadly speaking, the committee pays attention to: constitutional rights of Americans. The Department of Homeland Security has created a new legal advisory to federal immigration officers that they can, if required, use force to enter a private residence without a judicial warrant. They can use an administrative warrant. On my program yesterday, Richard Blumenthal was on, and I asked him about that. This is what he said. I'd like you to listen, please.
It's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. It is legally and morally abhorrent. It reflects and exemplifies what's happening in real time in America today. The abuses, dangerous and destructive policies that are occurring in Minneapolis and all around the country, documented even before Minneapolis and Renee Good's death in a report that I did as a result of an investigation as the ranking member on the permanent subcommittee on investigation. That's the reason the whistleblowers came to me with this secret policy.
Do you support this new policy, Mr. Chairman?
Well, what I support is ICE agents being able to do their job. Right now, ICE agents are being doxxed, they're being tracked, they're being spit on, they're being harassed while they're trying to enforce federal law. If you interfere with the enforcement of federal law, that is a problem, that is a crime, and that's what the Justice Department is looking into. They've developed they have this warrant where you can go and apprehend people who are here illegally who've done all kinds of bad things. I think the country supports that. We heard all kinds of testimony today, from Mr. Bovino, head of Customs and Border, talking about what was happening to kids, all the bad things these individuals are doing, and yet somehow it is wrong to go apprehend people who are here illegally and who have also committed crime. That's I think the country, that was the heart of this last election. The president campaigned on this issue, and I think the country supports it. What they don't support is this environment created by the left that makes it so difficult for agents to enforce the law. I mean, remember the agent who got attacked by the illegal migrant who committed all kinds of crimes with a shovel just a week and a half ago? The country sees how wrong that is, and I think supports law enforcement enforcing the law.
Before I let you go, Mr. Chairman, on this particular point, though, because I have been with ICE on enforcement actions, they have what they call a knock and talk, which they knock on the door, and because they are not allowed to enter unless they are invited in, they don't enter. This new policy says you can enter even if you don't have an independent judicial warrant to enter someone's private residence. Are you comfortable with that?
They have a warrant signed off by a judge from the executive branch versus from the judicial branch. So it's still a warrant that they are using to execute and to enforce the law. So it's still a warrant. I think you got to have a warrant to do that. They have one but we have some judges in our immigration enforcement system who are in the executive branch versus the separate and equal branch, the judicial warrant that you're talking about. So there's still a warrant involved in doing this. What I also know happens
just so I'm clear on this, you're comfortable with that?
Yeah, we're looking at the legal analysis, and I think that's appropriate.
And you would be comfortable with that under a Democratic administration as well, I presume?
Again, like I said, we're looking at the legal analysis that's being put out by Homeland Security. We're reviewing all that, but that's my understanding how it works, and I think that is consistent with how our great system is supposed to operate, and certainly consistent with the election that took place when President Trump ran on this issue of securing our border and finding those individuals who are here illegally who have done terrible things and making sure they're removed from the country.
It's an ongoing conversation, Mr. Chairman. I hope you'll come back and join us for a longer one. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time very much. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Straight ahead, the latest forecast on this weekend's very large winter storm. That's next, right here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. We are, because it's important, tracking this large winter storm that is expected to bring frigid temperatures, dangerous conditions to more than 200 million Americans. CBS News New York meteorologist Scott Padgett joins me now with the latest. Scott, take it away.
Major, we're looking at this storm that's a slow mover making its way from the southwest to the north and the east. Look at this, 182 million plus people under winter weather alerts, winter storm warnings from stretching down through parts of New Mexico all the way through parts of the north and east. And on top of that, we're going to be seeing some snow and ice in combination. So as you take a look at the future cast, here we are Saturday morning. By the time we go into Saturday night, it is snow through parts of the Ohio River Valley, ice from the Carolinas all the way down through the southern plains. And this storm is not done. It will continue to work its way north and east, spreading the ice, spreading the snow. On top of that, some gusty winds as well. So we're going to see that even by Sunday evening. It is the rain. It is the snow and the ice through parts of the mid-Atlantic, snow through parts of the north and the east as that system will continue to work its way offshore. So let's talk about the ice first. Now remember this, 1/10 of an inch of ice can bring down tree limbs or power lines. We're looking at more than that through parts of Texas, possibly up to 1 inch of ice, all the way through parts of Mississippi, through parts of Georgia into the Carolinas as well. it will be just travel that can't happen for you. It's going to be treacherous travel out there. On top of that, we're talking a lot of snow. As this storm makes its way from parts of the southern plains to the northeast, there could be some spots of more than 18 inches of snow in Kentucky, stretching to Arkansas into Oklahoma. This pink color that you see there, that's more than 12 inches of snow. Let's break down some of the major cities. Baltimore, 10 to 14 inches. Boston, 12 to 18. New York City, 10 to 18. And then Philly and D.C., 10 to 14 inches of snow. And then the other story is the cold air that is in place. That brutal cold feels like temperatures possibly 40 below to 50 below expected. You can see extreme cold watches and warnings in place. So major, as everyone's trying to clean up after this ice and the snow, it's going to be the dangerous cold that they're still dealing with.
Dangerous cold and many other conditions. Scott Padgett, thank you very much.
No problem.
Turning back to politics and policy. On his way back from the World Economic Forum, President Trump was asked how long would it take to put together a deal on Greenland. Stop me if you've heard this before. He said it'd be about 2 weeks. Award-winning war correspondent Kenneth Rosen joins me now. Why? Well, because he's the author of the extraordinarily well-timed book, Polar War: Submarines, Spies, and the Struggle for Power in a Melting Arctic. So, Kenneth, I've read about half of the book. Give me your 30-second take on the Greenland of it all this week in Davos.
The Greenland of it all. Well, it's been an ongoing power struggle in the circumpolar north for about a decade now. It's only recently ramped up and was notably ramped up when Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in the first Trump administration introduced militarization to the north, and this idea of bringing militaries up north as the climate warms 4 to 5 times faster than the rest of the world. So as we see that ice melt, we're seeing more and more countries move to the north to look for opportunities that didn't exist before climate change.
What would you say to Americans who might ask themselves, not unreasonably, so it's melting up there, the Russians are there, the Chinese are there, is the United States doing enough, and is this brusque, anti or sort of counter-diplomatic way that Trump is pursuing helpful to U.S. interests?
It is an important part of the world. It's important for our national defense. It's important for our sovereignty. It's important to maintain competency in the far north. And we have not, as a nation, been able to do that since the end of the Cold War. We've pulled back all the bases that we once had up there. We have fewer personnel who are competent in high north cold weather warfare. And we simply just don't have the seafaring ships and the icebreakers in order to operate up there year round. We are competing with some other nations who aren't considered Arctic states. By virtue of Alaska, we as Americans are part of an Arctic nation. But as the climate warms and more access is available to those in the mid-latitudes, we're seeing India, China, and other nations look for opportunities up in the north. We do need better defenses up in Alaska and across North America, but we need to work with our partners for that. And this bellicose rhetoric coming out of Washington only threatens to undermine our already weak position in the north.
I'm going to read from page 110, Kenneth, with your permission. Greenland is not seeking to be bought, nor is it looking to be rescued. It is seeking dignity, cooperation, and respect. Are those attainable?
I think we've been set back. I think the Greenlanders, the Inuit people of Greenland have been set back a ways, given the last 2 weeks and the desire for the Trump administration to take over a sovereign nation. They have been, since 2008, looking for independence and self-determination. That's their entire goal and what they've been focused on for much of their history. And now that's been threatened because of this sideshow that's been coming out of Washington. And I spend a lot of the book trying to underscore this notion that partnership in the north, partnership with our NATO allies, the Scandinavian nations, the Nordic nations, who have much greater claims to the north, is what's going to benefit us in the long run as a nation, as an Arctic power. And to bring that back into the fold, to be more competent and more able-bodied within the north, is to rely on our partners, not to diminish them.
And in about 20 seconds, Kenneth, this framework doesn't have any details, and they may be fleshed out, but it sounds to me it's going to be like what it always was, some sort of cooperation which they were always offering in the first place.
We already had all the access we need, Major. I don't know why we would go and jeopardize it, but I'm not really certain that the framework is anything other than rhetoric. And I can assure you from my experience in the circumpolar north over 3 years that this is only going to come back in full force in a few short months.
You have expert experience there, and I'm very appreciative to have you with us. Kenneth Rosen, the book, Polar War, Submarine Spies, and the Struggle for Power in a Melting Arctic. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The Democratic field to replace Michigan Senator Gary Peters, well, getting a bit crowded. We will speak with one candidate, Abdul El-Sayed, who's coming to that campaign, trying to be a new progressive voice and possibly an underdog to win that race. We'll talk to him about it next here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Thanks for hanging out with us. Michigan Democrats, well, they've got kind of a muscular primary for the United States Senate, all to replace Senator Gary Peterson, who has announced he's not seeking re-election. I want to bring in one of those candidates, Abdul El-Sayed. He's a physician, prominent member of the Michigan public health community. He also ran for governor in 2018. I'm glad to have you on the program. I don't want to bum you out, but I know you've seen this, but one of your opponents, State Senator Mallory McMorrow, who also positions herself as a progressive candidate in this primary, today got a video endorsement from Connecticut Democrat Chris Murphy. I want to play a little bit of that for you and get your reaction.
This is a time where we just need new voices in the Senate, and voices like yours. I mean, Mallory, you've won in a deep red district. You've got this reputation as somebody who takes on big, powerful interests and wins, and that's exactly what we need right now in the United States Senate.
Okay. How do you respond?
Oh, I'll say this. I got a lot of respect for both Senator McMorrow and Senator Murphy, but I'm honored to have the endorsement of someone who's actually won votes in Michigan, which is Senator Bernie Sanders. And more importantly, we're out and about my state, 70 different cities now, 200 public events. And folks understand what consistency looks like. I ran for governor 8 years ago, and I was saying the same things then. Donald Trump himself is not the disease of our politics. He's just the worst symptom of the disease of our politics. The disease is the corporate money, the billionaires who are buying and selling politicians. I've never taken corporate money, unlike both of my opponents in this primary and in the general. And for that reason, I can call it straight. I can fight for Medicare for all. I can stand up and talk about terms of engagements when data centers try to come to our towns. And I can stand up to the corporate utilities who are making that way too easy while not improving both our rates or reliability for electricity. So there's a lot that folks are worried about right now. And what a senator in Connecticut thinks is probably not one of them.
When you think about Joe Biden winning Michigan in 2020 and then President Trump re-winning it in 2024, what happened and why, and what are the lessons from that you believe fuel your candidacy?
You know, I think the important thing to understand here is that so long as Democrats don't have a positive affirmative vision, a narrative for what is happening, I worry a lot about our ability to win elections. Donald Trump had a very clear narrative, albeit wrong. He told you that if you were out of a job, it was because an immigrant took your job. If you were out of a home, immigrant took your home. Out of healthcare, immigrant took your healthcare. For us, we have a clear narrative. If you're out of a job or a home or healthcare, it's probably because a corporation figured out how to either speculate on one of those things, raise your rates, or figure out how to automate or offshore you out of a job. And we have to be willing to speak to our own narrative. The problem, though, is too often Democrats are taking the same money from the same corporations who are part of the problem. And so for me, I've been out there being clear about what I think the problem is. We want to get money out of politics, money in your pocket, and pass Medicare for all. And if we can't do those things, we can't talk about how we do them, I worry a lot about our ability to win this race in 2026 and win the future in 2028.
If you were to be in the United States Senate, would you ever vote to appropriate a single dollar to Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, otherwise known as ICE?
Look, Major, I was in Minneapolis earlier this week. I wanted to go and see for myself what it felt like, what it looked like. I want you to imagine the sound of a whistle, the kind that you might hear at a soccer practice. Now, I want you to imagine hearing those on every corner, which has now become the sound of an imminent ICE raid. That is an awful thing. And that's what it sounds like when your own government tries to lay siege to a city in your country. And that's what's happening right now. I've been clear that we need to abolish ICE because ICE is not about immigration enforcement. ICE is about normalizing paramilitary force in thrall to one man at the White House against our Constitution. And I think it needs to be abolished. I still believe, though, we have to keep our southern border safe and secure. I still believe that there is a role for some kind of immigration enforcement. But when you start recruiting people who are ill-equipped to do this job, who do not understand the basic responsibilities of being a part of law enforcement, who cover their faces and carry weapons and then shoot a mom in the face and tell them that's okay, I think at that point there is a mold in that house. And here's the thing about it. Just because you don't want a house with black mold in it doesn't mean that you don't want a home. We've got to start from scratch and move forward from there. And I think that starts with abolishing ICE. So your answer is no.
Democratic candidate for Senate in Michigan, Abdul El Sayed. I appreciate the time, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Major.
House Democrats, a bit divided on immigration. Next, our political panel will discuss the 7 House Democrats who broke with their leadership and voted to fund DHS without any reforms to ICE tactics. That's next, right here on The Takeout. Welcome back. Political panel time. Who's here with me at the family table? Matt Gorman, Republican strategist, former senior advisor to Tim Scott's presidential campaign. Chuck Rocha with the hat and the fetching vest, CBS News contributor, former senior advisor to Bernie Sanders. We need vests that say The Takeout on it.
That's what we're doing here.
All right. Very quickly, from your perspective, Chuck, 7 House Democrats voted for DHS funding, no ICE reforms, even though that was the position of the House Democratic leaders. What does that tell you?
All 7 of these members represent districts that are majority Republican in the last election cycle. They're worried that Republicans are going to run ads against them, saying that they're soft on crime and soft on the border.
Is that a good call for them?
I don't think so. I think people are sick and tired of what they're seeing in our streets, but it's their call, and that's why they did it.
Matt?
7 of them have brain cells, at least, because we're going to run ads saying that they want to abolish ICE. We've seen this movie before. It's not like this is theoretical. 2020 abolished, defund the police, also abolished ICE back then, 1.0. And so we're going to play the hits, I guess, for the House Democrats.
Do you think, Matt, there is any political liability for Republicans broadly in the midterms for the optics of the last 2 weeks in Minneapolis?
First of all, I will say this. I think after Vance came and he met with...
tried to soften the rhetoric.
Yes. Keith Ellison yesterday as well, reports are. I expect de-escalation. That's what I'm also hearing on the ground. So I think that's going to be a positive issue going forward. I also think this. Adam Jentelson, a member of your party, often says this very well. If you're arguing to abolish law enforcement, if you're arguing, it doesn't matter what the context or the little idiosyncrasies are, that is a hard argument to make and easy for Republican ad makers.
Matt is right. They're going to run ads against these 7 people anyway, saying they want to abolish ICE, just like I'm already going to make an ad saying that they've overreached and people don't want 5-year-olds arrested in our streets.
The Republican National Committee said today, Matt, it is going to have a midterm convention. Maybe in Dallas, maybe in Las Vegas, maybe they've announced. I'm not quite up to speed on that, but wherever it is this a good idea? Why would you do this?
Look, it'll be good to see you at that convention, like you started the last one. But no, I think these sorts of things are important for convening events, and they get attention. And I think the Democrats also said they want to hold one as well. I think it's actually smart, because what's the biggest problem both parties, but especially ours in the Trump era, tend to have in midterms? It's attention. How do we get eyeballs? How do we motivate our base? I think these sorts of things are important. They also raise a lot of money for each party. I think it could be a good little tradition.
The money and the attention. Let me explain to everybody that a midterm election is about turnout. It's about motivating your base to vote. About 40% of the voters don't show up in a midterm election, and that's what they're trying to do. And I think the Republicans want to they're desperate to try to get their message out. And I would remind my friend Matt and all my Republican friends is, Joe Biden said the unemployment was at an all-time low, stock market was at an all-time high, and he created all these jobs, but he couldn't break through. Sometimes it's tough to be the president.
You spin that you did pretty well in the midterms. That's why he ran again. That's why you had the debacle you had in 24.
True that.
I want to ask a very simple over-under question. The First Lady, Melania Trump, has a documentary coming out next week. $40 million commissioned by Amazon to get it. $35 million ad budget to support it. She's going to be at the New York Stock Exchange, I believe, on Wednesday to publicize it. Over, under, Matt, $10 million, is it made at the box office, yes or no? Over, under?
Over 10.
Over 10.
Yeah.
I think it's under 10. I just don't think there's a lot of appetite for it, but I could be wrong.
Why?
I just think folks can see for what it is. I think she's popular. I did not take her popularity away from her, and I think a lot of people like her, but I don't think they like her worth $10 million.
And why do you say more than $10 million, Matt? Because you think there's just a natural curiosity in the Trumpian world?
Look, I do actually. You know, there is a natural interest on her. She doesn't go out there a lot, so there will be some draw. And again, $10 million, it's not like it's $300 million. We're not trying to do Avengers here.
No, it's not. Yeah. It's not Avengers.
And if you watch this...
it's not Avatar.
If you watch this...
And how Avatar can make money is beyond me. So if Avatar can make money, I think this can too.
And if you watch the sizzle reel, there's only one mention of Donald Trump in the entire sizzle reel, so maybe I'm wrong.
And it's kind of dismissive. Matt Gorman and Chuck Rocha, thank you very much. Everyone, I want you to be safe this weekend. Be safe. It's a bad winter storm. Happy Friday, everyone. This is The Takeout. You know what we are? Just a quick reminder. Relentlessly curious, reliably civil, occasionally clever. The Daily Report coming up next.